Done Thursday morning by the king of the Mamprugu traditional area of which Bawku is said to be part, now Bawku Abdullahi Mohammed Sheriga, together with his royal court members. It started with the arrival of the families and sympathizers of the 4 Mamprugu Gate in Bawku. Soon, scores of people in around Nalirgu began to gather at the palace to witness the historic enskinment of a Bawku Naba by a Mamprugu overlord after nearly 40 years. However, while the processes were ongoing, members of the Northeast Regional Security Council led by the Regional Minister Yidana Zakari arrived at the palace in the company of heavily armed security forces. The presence of the Regional Minister briefly halted the process as the crowd erupted in opposition against his presence and demanded that he leave the place. After a brief opposition from the crowd, Mr. Yidana, following the intervention of the palace elders, was allowed to engage the overlord in a short private conversation. Whilst on his way out after the meeting with the overlord, the crowd began to hoot at him and his delegation. A palace elder later told Joy News that the minister had come to accompany the overlord to Accra upon the invitation of President Nana Akufo-Addo. The elder added that the overlord turned down the invitation and told the minister it was too late to stop the enskinment. The enskinment processes then resumed and soon ended with the announcement of Na Seydou Abagari with a chieftaincy titled Na Akuluga II as the new chief of the Bawku Paramount Scheme. Speaking to Joy News, some of the residents believe this enskinment will ensure the return of peace in Bawku.
The ban has never solved any problem. Bans have killed many people. We have seen many deaths. We have seen many names. We have seen many properties and lives destroyed. It has to stop. The youth, I am a young man and I feel very bad. Every time I see pictures of precisely youth being killed, as somebody who is a parent, I feel very much aggrieved. I am not happy.
There is nothing like a Supreme Court ruling. So indeed, what the Nigeria has done today is the best thing to do. Indeed, this is a stepping stone to a resolution of the conflict or crisis in Bawku. I would want to entreat politicians to respect the chieftaincy institution. So the government should rather pay attention or concentrate on how to ensure that lives and property are not lost there. But as for taking the chief home, in fact, the chief will soon be home. There is nobody on earth that will be able to stop the legitimate Bawku Naba from getting to Bawku.
I expect everything to return to normalcy as usual. We've had it before during the era of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's first president. He created this thing in the first place. But after the overthrow of Nkrumah in 1966, the 30th king of Mampuru, na Gongo Adam Badinso, and skin na Tampuru Adam Zanjo as the 14th Bawku Naba. And you can go and check the history. Bawku returned to normalcy. Everything was moving on smoothly until the demise of the 14th Bawku Naba, na Tampuru Adam Zanjo, before we had what we were having. So we are optimistic that everything will return to normalcy after this enskinment.
So everybody in Mampuru, Upper East, in Northeast, we are happy to see such a thing. For Nayiri to skin Bawku Naba, because all that place is for Govt.
The new chief is a popular retired educationist whose grandfather was the 12th Bawku Naba. He was unanimously approved by the crowd as they burst into loud cheers amidst drumming and dancing. The new chief, Na Akuluga II, called for an end to all hostilities in Bawku.
Finally,
Elias Sutanko reporting from Nalirgu for Joy News.
The government must back.
So this was in February of 2023 when Na Alhaji Seydou Abagari was enskinned by the Nayiri as Bawku Naba to rival the Bawku Naba in place under the scheme name Na Kulga II. This enskinment appears to have happened at a time that the security could not pick the intelligence properly. So whilst the process was going on, the president sent for the chief to be brought to Accra. And they told the president it was too late to reverse anything. So it went on. Right after, the bloodbath ensued. Then sometime even before that, the members of parliament in the area, particularly those who belong to the Kusase faction, there's a Mampurushi faction, or the Mampurugu faction and the Kusase faction, led by Kletus Avoka, gave a press conference and asked the president or the government to do the right thing. At the time, the president or the government had issued an arrest warrant for the newly enskinned. And we are told he went into hiding. This is what the MP said at a press conference. Let's hear them.
The problem we have with the Bawku issue is that people don't want to accept the truth.
Was done Thursday morning by the king of the
Timpani and Garu, who include Honorables Mahma Ayaraga, Kletus Avoka, Abanga Abdullahi, Haji Ladi Ayi Ayamba, Lydia Lamisa Kamvareba, and Honorable Albert Akoko Alazuga, that the Nairi, Na Bohugu Mahami, Abdullah Sherga II, has purported to enskin a rival chief for Bawku. This is unacceptable and should not come from a person of his stature. Such purported enskinment is null and void and will not be recognized by any institution under the 1992 Constitution. The government of Ghana must take every step to ensure the maintenance of peace and security and hold perpetrators of this criminal act accountable. Meanwhile, the members of parliament for the area call on the people of the Kusauk traditional area and its environs to remain calm and assure them that this unlawful conduct will not stand. It is not enough to condemn the act. It should go further than that and make sure that the fellow doesn't act as a chief. That is important. Not words alone, but action by government. There cannot be a rival chief in Bawku. There is one chief recognized by law, and that should be respected by everybody under this constitutional dispensation. So government should not just say that we condemn it, but make sure it doesn't work. No rival chief exists in Bawku. That cannot be tolerated. I'm very much surprised that this incident could not be nipped in the bud, that it could have been prevented.
Right. Now, as I said, the government then issued an arrest warrant for Na Alhaji Seidu Abagri, for the paramount chief of the Mampurugu traditional area and his kingmakers. But that arrest warrant was later revised. It was revised on the 21st of February. It had been issued on the 2nd, was it? Then it was revised on the 21st, removing the paramount chief and his kingmakers and leaving only Alhaji Seidu Abagri as the one who was wanted for committing certain crimes which were a threat to national security. And I'm quoting what they said. What the chief did was to go to the High Court to seek to set aside this arrest warrant. At the time, he was said to have run into hiding. They were unsuccessful at setting aside the arrest warrant. Then they took the matter to the Court of Appeal. And the Court of Appeal in Tamale on the 17th of October reversed the arrest warrant. And Now Alhaji Seydou Abagre returned to his home in Bawku. This is where we are. That has led to the new developments. Remember, in November, soldiers were accused of killing in excess of 10 of the citizens because these shootings were going on. And Mahama Yarga actually petitioned Shraj. We don't know what became of it. In the latest development, let's hear Asamoah Boateng, who is the Minister for Chieftaincy.
In terms of how the rival chief ended up in Bawku, I'll leave that to security agencies to answer that. It's unfortunate he did. It's something that we have to find answers to, and also to try and deal with it, because his very presence is creating the problems. And indeed, as you read from the statement yesterday, it's causing a lot of unrest and unease and tension. So let's, as I said, leave that to security agencies. Released a press statement that declared a curfew in the Bawku area due to the substantial threat to public safety and security. Government is guided by its responsibility to protect lives and property, and above all, to enforce law and order, to restore normalcy as quickly as possible.
So, what happened? Let me begin from the studio briefly. We will go on the Zoom to speak to Dauda Jawara Salifu, spokesperson for the Mamprusis in the Bawku, and he's also a member of the Nairi legal team. He's a lawyer. Maxwell Zinyele Agbambila is lawyer for the Bawku Naba. But let me begin with Dr. Victor Doke, who is lecturer, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Very briefly, I'm picking out something from these developments, that in February 2023, when this enskinment happened, the government appeared to have intervened too late. When the enskinment was going on, that is when the government sought to have it stopped by inviting the chief to Accra, and they simply ignored them because it just was not going to happen. Then after that, an arrest warrant was issued for him, and it was said that he had gone into hiding. So that arrest warrant, as we know now, has been thrown away by the Court of Appeal. And that happened on the 17th of October. Why do you think there may have been some intelligence failure? Because from that date, the groups began to issue press statements indicating that he was returning to his palace.
All right, thank you very much, and good morning. Good morning to my colleague here. So with regards to the narrative you've given, yes, I agree strongly that there was some sort of lapses with regards to intelligence, because then the conflict, decades-old conflict, which every stakeholder is aware of and knows of. Now, when you talk about the security services, right, even if it's not the current crop of, security couples or heads on this case, there is some sort of like notes that people come in and have read. So you would expect that there would have been a comprehensive intelligence strategy with regards to, one, monitoring events in Narelegu. Two, even after the failure to stop the process, what happened? You monitor the said Alhaji Seydou, his movements. Now that didn't happen. So when that didn't happen, then the information would be that he's gone into hiding, right? So that brings to a fundamental question: are we really on top of our intelligence apparatus? Now that aside, you have the press conferences, as you rightly stated. How about monitoring those press conferences, picking up the sources, picking up individuals, and then interrogating them to know where Seydou is? We didn't do that. And I remember 15 February 2023, when the process started, I had the opportunity to speak on this platform, and I mentioned that Seidu should not be allowed to enter Bawku, otherwise there'll be consequences. Now the unfortunate has happened. He entered, and then we saw the aftermath. 3 days of, cacophonous shootings and disruptions in Bawku thereabout. We have, a number of security services manning areas. How is it that Seidu came into Bawku unnoticed? There are a lot of questions that needs to be answered.
I'm not sure we can say he went to Bawku unnoticed. On the same 17th of October, the Mamprugu Youth Association, Maya, they issued a press statement. Arrest warrant on Na Sherega Alhaji Seidu Bagri set aside by appeals court. So they stated a number of things, went back to what had happened earlier. They called what had happened about the Rambo style, with the military stormed Nalerigo to effect the illegal warrant. And then they commended their people and kingmakers for being patient and following the legal processes to overturn the arrest warrant. And then concludes by saying, we take this opportunity to call on the government and security agencies to respect the decision of the appeals court and refrain from any further interference in this matter. Any continued attempt to meddle will only exacerbate tensions and undermine the integrity of our democratic and legal institutions. They urge all to accept the ruling peacefully. We encourage any aggrieved party to seek legal redress through appropriate channels, just as we have done. Violence or any other form of disruption will only worsen the situation, and so on and so forth. And the indication was clear that he was returning to Bawku.
Immediately, this press came out. What should our intelligence and security agencies, what should they have done? You monitor the situation, if need be. You can project, obviously. This, I call it, it's an easy analysis to make that. When you have a chief already in an area, and then you have a rival chief who is coming into an area, you are definitely going to have armed confrontations. So it's either we saw the signs on the wall and didn't act, or there are some shadow stakeholders benefiting in all these skills. Come again?
Complicity.
Complicity. We're complicit.
We're going for elections, some suggest.
Exactly. Now, we'll come to the political side, which plays between the two sides of the
19 lives at stake, and some tell us there's even more.
There's even more, so I heard from my interaction with some friends that I have in Bawku. There's even more to it than the 19 lives.
Is it not a very difficult situation for the government? They issue an arrest warrant for this chief, and then he manages in the period of the year to get it set aside. It's a court of competent jurisdiction, the Court of Appeal, that set it aside and said the reason they set it aside was that the warrant was issued wrongly. The law requires that the arrest warrant must be issued by a magistrate of a district court. But this was issued and signed by a commissioner for oath and dealt with at the High Court. And the Court of Appeal was very plain that the processes were completely wrong. So the arrest warrant was a nullity. So it's on technical grounds. That's why they set it aside.
Yeah, right. Now, going into, I'm not a lawyer, but from your explanation, then how about we do the right thing for the sake of peace? Okay? Now, for the sake of peace, well-meaning Ghanaians and we analysts, researchers would agree that Alhaji Seidu needs to come out of Bawku, first of all. So then we can now move forward and then talk about resolving the other.
So when the Court of Appeal set the arrest warrant aside, the government should have now done it properly.
My take.
And then rearrested, sought to rearrest him.
Sought to rearrest him. Now, if the arrest is going to create a problem,
it definitely will create a problem. You know that.
Exactly.
We are in election time. And the community or the town, the place, the region, sort of, is divided into two. There is the MPP and there's the NDC.
Exactly.
And one group is perceived to be MPP, and that group is shocked that their government is doing this to them.
Exactly. So now that's why I talk about the political aspect. Now, knowing very well it's an election year and you wouldn't want to lose elections, so you play it safe. Safe by that I mean, issuing another arrest warrant would mean that your people will not vote for you. You can't risk that. You understand? Now, when the Bawku Naba places an embargo on the activities, affecting the NPP side, that also causes or has a cause for concern with regards to who wins and who loses in that aspect. But in all, if you were the government, you would be very careful with regards to, touching Seidu or even issuing an arrest warrant. But what are we actually hoping to achieve? Peace in Bawku. So for the right thing to be done, let's get him out of the area, first of all, for calm to be restored. And now we can proceed on where we stopped at.
Well, they insist that that is his home. You can't, what are you trying to do? That's his home. He was born, bred there, his fathers, forefathers lived there. And in any case, they insist that he has every right to ascend to that throne, that skin. So you hold it there, I'll return, and I can see Kofi Bentil. Kofi Bentil is here. Kofi Bentil, Dr. Tony Edu, and a couple others will be helping us to look at the Supreme Court's decision. But of course, they will have a quick bite on this issue. And you can imagine that he's itching to go rebel blunt on what he thinks the failures are that has led to this loss of lives. Yes, let's now talk to Dauda Jawara Salifu, who is spokesperson for the Mamprusi in Bawku and member of the Nairi legal team, as well as Maxwell Agbambila, who is lawyer for the Bawku Naba. Dauda, thank you very much for joining us, sir.
You are most welcome, Samson, and good morning to all your viewers.
Right. There are those who suggest that since you knew that potentially there will arise this kind of situation, even when you were victorious at the Court of Appeal, and some also suggest that the Court of Appeal may have needed to pay attention to the situation there and not, just go ahead and issue that this thing is unlawful. Some say since you knew that this was potentially going to happen, even in your victory, don't take Na Alhaji Seidu Abagri into Bawku. What do you say?
Well, very well, Samson, sorry. You see, the question of illegality was decided by the Court of Appeal. And so, Na Seidu Abagri Na Kolga patiently waited for over a year, to get a favorable outcome of this matter, so that he could move on. But don't forget that Na Seidu Abagri was enskined by the Nairi, who is the kingmaker of Bawku. So he was just a beneficiary. There were others. It could have been any other Mamprusi prince. You see? And if you look at the period between when the Court of Appeal's decision came out and the time that he went back to Bawku, it took a while. And please don't forget that he's a father, he's a grandfather, he's a head of a family, he's a head of a clan, and his spiritual and wise guidance is needed by his people. So you cannot exile somebody, a Ghanaian, and ask that, don't come back to your hometown, because if you come back to your hometown, there will be some upheavals and then we would shed blood. I mean, that basically is the the statements, unfortunately, by our Kusasi brothers. I thought that they would have exercised restraint and allowed, you know, the due process, the legal processes to go on. Because you see, I had also cited an appeal to the Supreme Court seeking to overturn the decision of the Court of Appeal. I thought that was unfortunate, but the government thought it wise that, look, going to the Supreme Court, you know, to pursue this matter was not the best. So it rescinded that decision. And I was
you mean to say that after the decision of the Court of Appeal on the 17th, when the Attorney General lost, they went to the Supreme Court and they also decided to withdraw that appeal to the Supreme Court?
Yes, I cited it. I cited something like that. There was a process, a notice of appeal, you know. So, and that was an unfortunate situation. But you see, I thought that Na Seydou Abagre na Kolga, you know, going back to Bawku, shouldn't have created all these mayhem and upheavals.
His enskinment brought trouble, brought death. So you know that his return will also likely result in what we are now seeing, right?
Something. We can go back to that, but you see, a lot of people say that his enskinment was illegal. What was the illegality in the enskinment? You see, when you go to the Constitution, you know, Article 277, it clearly states how somebody becomes a chief. Nobody has said that Nakoga does not hail from Bawku. He doesn't hail from a royal lineage. And that his enskinment was not done according to the customs and traditions of Mampusi. So when people say that there was an illegality and that the enskinment was wrong, is it to say that it did not comply with the provisions of Article 277 or any other provisions under the Chieftaincy Act? Now, Samson, you and I are lawyers. Look at section, I think, 63 of the Chieftaincy Act. There are subsections from A to F, which talks about offenses of a chief. Where in all those subsections apply to Nasheriga? You can't find any.
Don't you think that sometimes for the sake of peace, you don't unduly stay on the black letter law and say, if you can't point to breaching of Article 277, if you can't point to offenses committed by a chief, then you know we are clean. No one should complain, yet deaths are happening.
So I'm happy you have said that. So those offenses you can't find any offense under the Constitution or under the Chieftaincy Act. But Samson, let me refer you to, still on the Constitution, Article 1911. Okay, and if I may read, it says that no person shall be convicted of a criminal offense unless the offense is defined and the penalty for it is described in a written law. So, the crime. Who has defined that crime that Naseriga has committed? Where is the crime?
Okay, hold on for me.
And something, don't forget that Naseriga did not enskin himself.
That's a point you have made. So hold on for me. Let me bring on Maxwell Agbambila, who is lawyer and speaks for the Bawku Naba. Thanks for joining us, Maxwell. So the question some are asking is, why should now Kulga II's return to his home, to his family, to his people result in bloodbath?
Thank you, and thank you to all your viewers and listeners. Before I go to answer your question, if you may permit me to make a comment or two about what has already been discussed so that we can properly put the conversation into proper perspectives, in my humble view. Now, the first question you asked to the first speaker was whether or not there was some security lapse. And he sort of agreed with you and sought to say that indeed there has been some security lapse. Now, with respect, I completely disagree that national security or the security architecture of this country has never been fully aware of all the events that are happening in Bawku. I think, and I can give you a litany and series of events to address my point. I think that what is happening in Bawku is purely as a result of the fact that the Mampusis in Bawku think that because they have a son in the person of the Vice President of the Republic, they can use him to perpetrate the carnage that is now happening in Bawku. And permit me to give you just a few things. Now, you would know that the Mampusis in Bawku purport that they had a chief who died more than 40 years ago. They never spoke about any funeral. Indeed, the information we have is that the man died as a practicing Muslim. And then you know that when Muslims die, there's an adua that is being performed. 40 years later, all of a sudden, they get up and say, look, we want to perform a funeral of our departed chief. Everybody cautioned them that this funeral that you want to perform is a recipe for disaster. In fact, national security picked the intelligence. They placed an injunction on the so-called funeral. But surprisingly, there were people led by a certain Tampuri. They stormed Bawku and violated the injunction that was placed on the purported funeral and actually performed it. They got them arrested, I think about 7 of them, brought them to Accra, took them to court, gave them VIP treatment. They were acquitted and they returned home as heroes. National security saw, they knew about it. Then later, we heard that there was some purported enskinment in Bawku. The government issued an arrest warrant for the arrest of Seydou Abagri. Look, in this country, let's not kid ourselves. Unless government or the security apparatus don't want to find you, wherever you are, you can always be located. But they issued the arrest warrant. It remained on paper for more than a year. Seydou Abagri was living a free man. In fact, his lawyers were going to court up and down. How do you say that a person who is hiding has lawyers he's giving instructions to who are going to court, from High Court to Court of Appeal? So government just didn't want to act. National security just didn't want to act. Then they succeed in setting aside the arrest warrant. And if you read the ruling of the Court of Appeal, the judges lament that the Attorney General did not even put in a response.
That's right.
Then they get it rescinded. The Attorney General decides to appeal. As for whether or not the argument about the rightfulness or otherwise of the arrest warrant, I don't want us to go into that because it's not a legal exercise. But except to say that there's a difference between Section 61, which the Court of Appeal was complaining about, and Section 71, which sort of allows the High Court to be able to issue an arrest warrant. But I don't want us to go into that. I just want to give you a litany of events that show that national security and government, for that matter, is fully aware. So the Attorney General now decides to file an appeal of the arrest warrant. We talked to him. We told him that, look, you are better off just issuing another arrest warrant because an appeal is a waste of time. And the situation in Bawku is quite volatile. If you allow this man to go, we may have consequences. The following day, to our utter dismay, that arrest warrant, the appeal was withdrawn. You know, and then we are where we are now. So I don't think that the national security or the security architecture is not aware of what is happening in Bawku. It is because some people think that by giving the Mampusis in Bawku what they want, it may brighten the chances of Dr. Bawumia. And indeed, there are some that we have heard who say that, look, you let Asedo Abagri go to Bawku, let there be chaos or whatever. We will place a state of emergency on the Bawku area, which has 6 constituencies, so that they don't go to the elections, and that may brighten the chances of Dr. Bawumia. I don't know where they get those kind of analysis from. And they seek to say
that's a speculation you are making for now.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. No, it's a speculation that is firmly grounded in the events that I've told you. Otherwise, how do you place an injunction on a funeral? People go and do it.
It's difficult to think that any of our leaders will be interested in allowing bloodbath as a pretext to issue a state of emergency to disenfranchise a group of people. Already 19 people are dead, but we are told the numbers are even higher. And you can't think that any leader will want more people to die just so they win an election.
Shocking as it is, that is what we have found ourselves in, the situation we found ourselves in now. And as I was saying, they have managed, and when they go to their meetings, they have managed to convince the government that Kusasis are anti-MPP. So let us do this, even if we don't get them to vote, it brightens our chances. But let me say this, that in the Kusasi area, there are 6 constituencies. It is only Pusiga and Garu that have never given the MPP an MP. Indeed, the whole of Upper East, as we speak, the only MP that the NPP government has in the whole of Upper East comes from a Kusasi zone, Binduri. Before him, we had given them the current minister for Upper West region. We gave them Pemka of Chempani. We gave them Fuseni of Zebila. And so on and so forth. In 2004, we gave them Adamu Sakande in Bawku. So Kusasis are not that we are having. Is said about coming to Bawku to become Mamprusi community chief, or is he going to be paramount chief of Bawku traditional area or Kusa traditional area? I beg you, can you ask my brother that question?
But you know that is what it is.
Yeah, but
it's not about being a community chief. Otherwise, there will not be any problem.
Yeah, but my brother, there's a sitting paramount chief of Bawku who has 25 divisions under him, who has been a member and former president of the Regional House of Chiefs, who is the current member of the National House of Chiefs, who is duly gazetted. Do you just get up one day and say, I have enskined another person to become paramount chief? What kind of lawlessness is that? And now they are telling us that if we are not happy, we should go to court. A man has been there for more than 40 years. You didn't find a reason to go to court.
Is there not any other way other than you wishing that the government will issue a fresh arrest warrant and comply with the processes of issuing same as the Court of Appeal has indicated, by which it annulled the first one? Is there not any other way other than issuing an arrest warrant, arresting Na Kuluga the second? Is there not any other way than that to resolve the situation now?
First, I don't know why you keep referring to him as Na, because I don't know what Na he is.
When he was enskined, that was a skin name he was giving.
Well, that is why they call it illegitimate. Illegitimate to the extent that, as I've just narrated to you, there's a legitimate chief in the area.
Okay, please answer my question.
Yes.
Can something else be done other than using the force of law in arresting someone who is also recognized by a populace as their chief?
Yes, something else can be done, and it is very simple. The offenses that Seydou Abagre, first, you have never presented Seydou Abagre to the police for them to charge him. There's a reason why the arrest warrant was issued. If Seydou Abagre were purporting to contest that the person who is sitting in Bawku is not the chief, he knew the institutions to go to. Now, if you engage yourself in a conduct that has the potential of breaching the peace of this country, is my brother saying that that doesn't amount to an offense?
Okay, thank you, Maxwell. Thank you, Maxwell. So let me go to Dauda. Yes, Dauda, so listening to Maxwell, I cannot foresee, it's difficult for me to see a compromise happening, because As far as they are concerned, this must be pursued as a criminal conduct, or in the alternative, if the Mamprusis agree that now Alhaji Saidu Abagri will only be a community chief, there will not be any problem. It's difficult for me to see this happening. How can we get out of this?
Very well, Samson. Samson, I think you have overindulged my brother on the other side. And simple question that you asked him, he's gone on and on and on and on without answering the question.
And so you to try and answer my question directly.
Yeah, I'm not going to digress, but you know, the determining factor in all this is that who founded Bawku. Okay, and the history is clear. Even the writings of Sam that, the Kusasis, refer to very much. Sam says that Bawku was founded by Mamprusi. You see, the Kusasis also agree that yes, they were acephalous people, okay, and that they did not practice chieftaincy. And they also agree that it was the Mamprusis who founded the Bawku scheme.
But the Kusasi people had the Tindanes. The Tindanes are owners of land. That's the question, isn't it?
Yes. If you have time and you want me to go there, Samson, I know you are a Frafra man. Fortunately, I am also partly Frafra because my mother is Frafra. Now, that Tindana issue that we talk about, we have Tindanes all over the Frafra Grone area. Okay, do the Tindanes really own the land? You see, the Tindanes even belong to families. So, Samson, you are from Polko, I know. Okay.
No, I'm from Gambibgo. I'm not from Polko.
Yes,
I'm from
Gambibgo. Gambibgo and Polko are,
it's all right. Go on.
Yes. So, you see, the Tindanes are custodians of Tingbane. You see, these people do not own the lands per se. They pacify the gods. Families own the land. Look, it is trite law. How do people acquire land? Either by discovery or purchase or conquest. Kusasis have never said that they discovered Bawku. Where did they discover Bawku from? Where were they and they came to Bawku? There's no history of that.
But the history is also that the Nairi and his people involved in trade, and because you were involved in a lot of trade, all he does was for the safety of his people, he will appoint someone to be around to check, and that is what has led to and developed into what is becoming sort of the chief.
Yeah, so when Atabia came down, okay, from Zozugu to Zotenga, Bawku was not, it was not Bawku, it was called Zotenga. Zoretenga. I'm trying to get. See, at that point, when Atabia came, the whole land was vacant. You see, we have 6 Mamprusi settlements. Something, don't forget, we have the Bisa area, the Kulugungus, the Mognores.
But if people were not in charge of those lands, what was the fear about the attacks on the trade routes, which led to the Nairi appointing, his sons to go to these places and to ensure protection?
That whole area is called Mamprugu State. That whole area was called Mamprugu State. Okay. And there was a relationship, there is a relationship between the Nairi and then the Tinkoro Naba and the Moro Naba Emosi in Burkina Faso. Okay. Now, you also agree with me that the houses, the Zabarmes, the Moses, the Chokosis, the Bises, They all lived in the Bawku area. But what we are talking about is the 6 cantons that were specifically for Mampusis. And I'll name them for you. We have Senimbaga, which was the first garrison. Okay. Then we also had the last one that came, that was Binduri. We had Bawku itself. We had Gombo. We had Tanga. We had Teshi. We had Werekambo. These were purely Mampusi settlements. You see, and you see, we are talking about Bawku, Samson. We are not talking about Kusiga. We are not talking about Zebila.
Okay, so for the lack of time, can you tell us? Can you tell us, for the lack of time, can you tell us what, in your estimation, will restore calm and peace in Bawku?
Very well. Now, first of all, I disagree when they say that when Nashega came back to Bawku, that is what, you know, started all these upheavals, killings, and mayhem. You see, 2009, there were killings in Bawku. 2010, there were killings in Bawku. 2008, there were killings in Bawku. 2011, there were killings in Bawku. In 1956, there were fights in Bawku. Look, history tells us the first person who started this matter was Dugunyeli Hebe. Dugunyeli Hebe was the classmate of President Liman, my late father Imoru Salifu, Mr. Ganda, I'm trying to remember his name. They were in the boys' school in Tamale. Dugunyeli Hebe came back and started
Dada, can we avoid that? Because when we go back into the history, it brings up issues, and Maxwell also will insist that he be given opportunity to speak, because the history also says that the state at a point set up a commission or a committee led by some chiefs, and the resolution in that process was in favor of the Kusasis being the Bawku Naba and not the Mamprusis. So if we go into all of that, it will bring problems. So can you tell me what, in your estimation, is the way forward to resolve this?
You see, the way forward, I was on your studios, I think that was on Monday, and I proposed a way forward. I'm sure you have it. I said that because of the intermarriages and the relationships that we, the Mampusis and the Kusasis, have had in historical times, and we still do have, you see, we need to come together and fashion a win-win situation. Other than that, our grandchildren, my grandchildren would still be, you know, fighting this in the next century.
What for you sounds like a win-win situation?
Yeah, so what I said was that, look, no Mampusi is contesting to lord himself over any Kusasi anywhere. And that our customs and traditions are different. And that just like the way Maxwell says that the Kusasis want emancipation and that they were subjected to apartheid. I don't know what that is in our modern
they call it internal colonialism.
Internal colonialism, very well. You see, the Nairi does not call people and enskin them. People go to the Nairi and get enskinned. Previously, the Kusa Naba was enskinned by the Nairi. You see, as well as other Bawku Nabes. But you see, this issue we are dealing with is with respect to Bawku within the municipality. And for lack of time, I cannot tell you. What I am saying is that, yes.
Thank you very much. I can give you 30 seconds on the closure or shutdown of the 8 courts in this area. The High Court in Bogatanga, the Circuit Court in Bogatanga, District Court in Bogatanga, District Court in Zuarongo, District Court in Zabila, District Court in Garu, District Court in Bongo, and then District Court in Pusiga. You are a lawyer, you practice. Is this, how helpful is this?
It is not good, I have to be honest with you. Okay, it will create some form of hardships for, people who want to have access to the court, especially criminal matters. Okay, and I'm not privy to national security briefing to the CJ as to the reason why she has decided to shut down those courts. So I cannot say that it was a bad decision or it was a good decision.
So this is a time where there are infractions of the law. When there is an infraction of the law, what happens? People are just picked by police and kept in custody. That's it. Yes, Maxwell, let me hear you on that quickly. Please, strictly on the closure of the courts.
Oh, but my brother, you have given him...
Maxwell, I'm very sorry. Strictly on the closure of the courts and how that impacts on the security situation.
Give me a minute to say something and then I'll come to the closure of the courts. I beg you. Now, I have a very simple response to my brother who was talking about who founded Bawku. When we were in school, they taught us that a certain Prince Henry founded Africa. Some say it was Leo Africanus. If we agree that the descendants of Prince Henry, who founded Africa, should come and be our kings in Ghana, then we will give up. Because that's the logic that they are pushing on us. And I have said repeatedly that this argument about who founded Bawku, we can be at it ad infinitum, and nobody will get our way clear. Our case is simple and straightforward.
Right. Closure of the courts. How does that impact on the security situation and life generally?
Of course, I mean, I don't know the decision. I don't know what informed that decision. And there are some other state institutions that are working in the region. I don't know why they chose to close only the courts, as if to say that it is only court staff who their lives matter more than the police, the army, the civil servants, the teachers, the nurses. They are all there. They are working, especially in these times that there's a likelihood of the breach of law and order. If they arrest people and our laws are clear, what you should do with them, and you close down all the courts in the region, I don't know what they intend to achieve with that. And we should not be behaving as if judicial staff are more important than all the other people. And these are all pointers to what I was trying to say, that they will do these things bit by bit and come and tell us that the peace of the area is threatened. And so there would be a state of emergency.
Okay.
To sort out somebody's perceived chances of victory.
Thank you. Thank you, Maxwell. Thank you, Maxwell. And I'm going to take very brief comments from my guests who are going to be discussing the other issues with us. We have Kofi Bentil, lawyer and senior Vice President Imani Africa. We have Andrew Apia Dankwa, lawyer and leading member, Movement for Change. Ni Ama Ade, lawyer, Center for Social Justice. And Dr. Tony Edu, former Ghana ambassador to the Netherlands. We'll take just brief comments and then we'll take a break, return to the Supreme Court versus the Parliament of Ghana. Dr. Victor Doke, what will be your concluding comments on this?
Well, I think my concluding comment will be that the central government knows what exactly it has to do with regards to bringing finality.
You have taken a position. You said he should be arrested, he shouldn't have been allowed to go back there, you know, and if the arrest warrant has been set aside, there should be a way to make sure he doesn't get back there. Yeah. They insist that you can't be asking for that.
Well, we are looking at how we can bring peace to the area, how essential services can still be running, how people will not lose their lives. Okay, so if in a matter such as this, an emergency situation, Seidu is the cause of all these renewed clashes, then I think the right thing to do is invite Seidu out of Bawku and then address the issues. Now, in addition to that, I think the central government needs to have a contingency and emergency plan. As it is now, I don't see one in place. That's why we keep, getting
the military is still there. They've been there for a long time.
The military is still there. The police is still there. But I reiterate that curfews are not, the means to resolve or address a conflict. It is one of the ways. It's a direct prevention measure, operation prevention measure just to stop the clashes for some time. While the clashes have been stopped, what are stakeholders doing? The National Peace Council needs to be resourced, okay? There needs to be a lead focal point where they lead discussion, they lead mediations. Who are those leading the mediations? It's like we throw in people here and there, and then they have no idea as to what is going on.
This is a century-old situation.
Exactly.
So the solution may not be as simple as you suggest.
It won't be, but we need to have sustained engagement. As it is now, what is being done on the ground? Yes, the fighting has halted. What are we doing? Okay? We need to have that sustained engagement. Without that, we'll still be hovering around the same problem over and over again, and we won't have any solutions to it.
What do you say about the fact that this has escalated beyond the boundaries of the environs of Bawku, to the point that even the closure of the court has affected Bolga, Pusiga, and we are being told that even residents in Accra, are getting to fight?
Yes. Now, I got to know of this, tensions in Ashaiman and other areas where these two, members of these two factions live in, and it's a reality. And we need to look at those areas too. Now, closure of the courts, I think maybe the CJ should relook at it and then probably put things in place. Let's have some modalities with regards to either some operated. Now, everything is shutting down, okay, means that. So when you get criminals, in the
suspects.
Suspects, where do you keep them?
By the law, within 48 hours, they are supposed to be before a court.
We need to look at all those things. Other than that, then it means we are just doing anything anyhow in the area, which is not good.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Victor Doke is lecturer, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Now, Kofi,
yes, sir.
What do you say?
I say it's sad, and unfortunately, we are playing with fire. I am aware that there were times when in Abobloshi, fights erupted. And we hear that in certain places in Accra, you have formations, around these ethnic groups. God forbid. But if they start firing, you'll be surprised how terribly this can spread. We also hear that the guns that are being supplied are supplied from Accra. So there's a lot underfoot. First question is, who answers when there are these security lapses and intelligence failures? Anyway, on the specific issue, a wise man once said that when traditional institutions descend into irrelevance and are not subsumed by modern systems, they only generate confusion. When traditional institutions descend into irrelevance and are not subsumed by modern systems, they only generate confusion. We don't have time, so I won't go into it, but this is what I'm going to say. I don't see why we should not pass some sort of law that says that any area in this country where a chieftaincy dispute ensues or erupts, the government, the state, should ban all chieftaincy institutions in that place until they resolve it and come and tell the state. If I had time, I'll explain. But my point is, chiefs are revered, we respect them, and we want to keep them. They are part of our culture, but they are not necessary for the functioning of the state. So to the extent that they can cause death and cause confusion and threaten the state, we shouldn't tolerate it.
We don't ban the politicians when the politics lead to the death of 8 people in this country.
We do. When the soldiers take over, who do they ban first?
Who has been held responsible for the 8 people who were killed in the elections 2020?
If you had time, I'll tell you. But you don't have time. My point is this. Look, somebody caused something, and that led to something. I ask first, who answers when there are these security and intelligence failures? As far as I'm concerned, this is not beyond the security systems in this country. National security has all kinds of people running all over the place, terrorizing ordinary people. And you lose sight of things that are like this, and 19 people.
Now suspicions are being,
If you had time, we'll go into it. But my point is,
there's an attempt to have the place shut down under a state of emergency so that there will not be voting.
That is also another matter. You see, somebody is saying that
somebody
is saying that it is somebody's political machination to, shut the place down in a state of emergency, etc. Look, If a state of emergency will prevent the death of 19 people, do it. What is the purpose of the state? You can't convince me that the Ghana army is not capable of taking and holding Bawku. This is somebody's plan working well. And we are called here in Accra to deal with it.
In November, when the 10 people died, were killed, they were accused for it.
I was following when...
so maybe they are also being hedgy in how they approach the situation.
And something, we are all driving back and forth. You don't know where you will be and a stray bullet catches you. Okay? So if we had time, these things threaten the whole state. Abobloshi is just here. Ashaman is just here. You don't know where they are. And I'm telling you, there are big men in Accra, put funds together, buy guns, and send them there. And some of the guys here are armed.
We have
so
heard
we are dealing
over
with
and again
matters.
that almost every home in Bawku has a stash of guns.
Yeah.
How to retrieve them is the problem. I read a story of a gentleman who had to attend the funeral of his father. He went together, he was in a vehicle in the company of his brother and his wife and other people. He finished the funeral. On his way back, he got caught in the crossfire.
Exactly.
He was killed.
Yes.
He's gone to bury his father. He's dead. Yeah. And some other person was also, killed.
Because somebody is quarreling.
Oh, no.
This is why the state exists. This is why we have an army. Internal aggression and external aggression. Just stamp, the authority on it.
Okay. Dr. Tony Edu, you are with us. What can you say briefly about this situation, how to get out of it? Because it can't continue forever.
Samson, good morning and thank you for having me. Samson, in principle, I don't really want to comment on chieftaincy issues because they are emotional, ethnocentric, and they defy rational arguments. More than that, and if I recall, Professor Claude Aki and his distinction between consummatory traditionalism and progressive traditionalism. Chieftaincy issues always border on consummatory traditionalism, which is a bane of development. A bane of development. But Bawku has been with us. I recall how Yakubu's time, there were many casualties, innocent people being killed. Up till now, Bawku is still with us. Samson, I grew up in Kumasi, Malaysia, bordering Zabon Zongo. And the Mamprusi house was just close to my family house, and I was supposed to be the Mamprusi's godson. At no point in time would the Mamprusi have set himself up as a chief or king in Kumasi. He wasn't there. So how come the Mamprusis want to establish a Bawku Naba on a land that they do not own? Then there is the historical narrative. We were here first, we have the land, and so all these irrational things. The thing is that chieftaincy diverts attention from progressive developmental issues. They are too traditionalistic and they act as a bane of development. I agree with Kofi Bento. The negative role that the chieftaincy institution plays in our strive for development. But you can't wish them away. So the government of the day has the mandate, the responsibility, indeed the duty to ensure that an institution recognized by the Constitution does not operate in such negative terms as to thwart the development of any community. As it is now, the whole of Bawku is under a lockdown. Services have been suspended. No financial services, no water supply. Is that all for what? For the pride of one man?
Some time ago, people felt they could take
ethnic group.
Some time ago, people felt they could take refuge in Boga. Now it's escalated to Boga.
Yeah, and it's coming to Accra and so on and so forth. All these constitute a bane on our development. But you can't wish them away. So the government must perform its cardinal duty of bringing peace. Nana Akufo-Addo has gone around beating his chest about bringing peace to the last dispute in the north.
Yeah.
Can you remember?
Yeah, that has to do with the Abudu and Dani situation.
Yes. So why can't they do the same for Bawku?
I suppose the process has been going on, and we understand even Otunfo, who led that process, is still involved in the Bawku situation somewhat.
Then it must be institutionalized so that the process can go on. I never heard of the Nairi raising Mamprose Hene in Kumasi as a chief. He was Mamprose Hene, chief of the Mamprose community in Kumasi, period.
Okay.
Why are we so backward? Why are we so backward?
Okay. Thank you very much. Andy, do you want to say something briefly in a minute so that we take a break and return to the Supreme Court? What's the problem with your line? Oh, no. Niadi.
Yes. Good morning to our listeners and guests. Tribute to Osiadeyo Nana Addo Dankwa III, who published The Institution of Chieftaincy in Ghana. And I think that everybody must go read that book and the enormous knowledge and experience that he espoused in that book. And I think that once we do that, it will give some pointers as to how we can effectively. Briefly, what do you see? Briefly, what do you see to be the way out in Bawku? I mean, the way out is that they are landowners, and the respect must fully be given to the landowner. That's.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, I'm saying that they are landowners, and the respect must fully be given to the landowners.
In this case, you are referring to who? The Kusasis or the Mamprusis?
We all know who the original landowner is. Okay. We all know it, and we know clearly that there has been some visitors who have come onto the land. You want to take Accra, for example, where there have been chiefs installed in various quarters, and then they try to assume ownership and to take over from the people, and it does not augur well. And I know that we know that the issues are straightforward. Let us not hide under anything. It cannot be politics as usual. It cannot be one of the politics of everything. Let's put where the issues are, and then the solutions will be found.
Okay, so we speak. Am I the one thinking we just oversimplify that this is as easily done as possible, and yet it's been running on for years? You have Supreme Court decisions, and you have even decrees. Yes. Okay, we'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first. This is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and closest a partner, MTN everywhere you go. Ashasi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 years plus. My Way Insurance, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. DPS International, where every child shines. Flamingo Paints, simply superior. Syntex stands, it's strong, it's tough. Activa International Insurance, our clients our passion. And my outfits, as always, is by Kunati Clothing. You can find them at Adenta Shopping Center, Adenta Down. Call 0244 676732. Right. Got loads of your messages, but we will look at some of them just briefly before we proceed to the Supreme Court. Now, you don't identify yourself. You say this Bawku conflict started not today and they are still fighting. Instead of them making peace, they are rather in war and killing themselves. The only thing the government does is to impose a curfew, but yet the conflict keeps growing. Prince Henry in Koforidia says, until we stop pretending that we are solving the Bawku conflict, we shall not achieve anything. Why is Dr. Bawumia the head of the police, the head of the police council, quiet whilst lives of ordinary citizens are being lost? Alhaji Jama says, please, with due respect, address Na Alhaji Saidu well, because he is a chief and was enskinned by Nayiri the king. Okay, by Nayiri the king, kingmaker of the northern Ghana. Okay, so Kofi, the other thing I suffer when I'm moderating chieftaincy issues, including this Bawku situation, it doesn't matter how I try to moderate it. When I finish, I get all sorts of attacks. When I'm coming to moderate this, I read tons of history around these issues, but I still never escape. You know,
that's what Dr. Toledo said.
I was calling Na Alhaji Saidu Abagri by his skin name.
You offend
Na Kuluga the second. Somebody says you shouldn't do that because it's not.
Yes.
Then those who are also for him say that's what you should be doing.
Yes.
Anyway, then Muhammad Salifu says it is very possible for peace to return to Bawku. All we need to do is form an eminent group to facilitate the engagement of both factions. There is, however, nothing like a rival chief or recognized chief. It's all about ego issues, political manipulation and machination. It is solvable. Yamyolia Prince Botaya Yusuf says Bawku is doable. If government is really committed in ending this chieftaincy conflict, National House of Chiefs, Supreme Court or Judicial Committee of the National House of Chiefs, Commission of Inquiry or Commission of Eminent Chiefs. These have all happened over the years, you know, including specific laws just being passed for these situations. Nuruddin said, no time. Maxwell, be informed that some sons of Mampurugu, Dr. Bawumia, was there when an arrest warrant was placed on the Nayiri and Bokuna Shirega. Did we blame Bawumia for that? Fatawu Zanya Bugri says, how can the return of Na Kuluga be the cause of the recent disturbances? There were disturbances in Bawku even before Na Kuluga was enskinned. Okay, we know that, but right after the enskinment, there was trouble. The very few days after he returns, 20 people or more are killed. Well, Yao Febiri says the leaders of the various factions are only interested in their interests, not the welfare of the people. Mumuni Yakubu Nambe sounds like one of the lawyers for the Mampurugu. As well, it says, why should he not enter Bawku, his birth home, in the reverse? If it is based on security point of view, why don't the security apparatus ensure that intelligence takes care of the anticipated confrontations right in Bawku? The 1992 Constitution guarantees freedom of movement of all persons. Do chiefs have the power under the Constitution to place embargo on political campaigns? So the Bawku Naba, that's another thing. You heard one of them mention it. There is sort of an embargo by the Bawku Naba, as in not the Na Kuluga, the second, against campaign activities by the NPP.
Which is legal.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for those messages. Let's move on now.